Hey, good morning. Welcome, everybody, to our weekly edition of SafeDefend Facebook Live. Jeff
Good morning.
Green's joining me again. How are you, Jeffrey?
Fantastic. How about you?
You know, I read somewhere that you should always say, "Oh, I'm outstanding. I'm amazing." I'm just okay today. I'm just okay. I'm just okay today.
Could be worse.
Yeah, no. Okay. Okay is like middle of the road.
Right.
So I'm hanging in there. No,
that's how I got through college, middle of the road.
That's how I've gotten through life. So no, but it's been a good week. We a lot going on in the world over the last week, and unfortunately, not good news in many ways. But I think one of the things I want to jump in and talk about is the unfortunate shooting that everybody's talked about in the grocery store up in the eastern part of our beautiful country.
Yeah, that terrible in so many ways.
And
it highlights several things that we've been really talking about and trying to address on several of the last shows we've been doing. But one, that just absolute need for situational awareness, no matter where you are, and two, the world is changing, and we're seeing violence become, especially at this level. I don't want to say norm yet, but it definitely is much more prevalent than probably at any other time in our history, outside of a war situation. And it's becoming kind of our reality. And so, understanding where you are, what's going on around you, understanding that, getting rid of that mindset that it can't happen here. So many of the things that we had talked about recently, we're just really seeing it kind of play out, and then just there's no better reinforcement for the strategies we've been talking about than what we're seeing.
Yeah, and this young man, 18 years old, full body armor.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just the whole thing, and it just speaks to so much stuff. Like you were saying, we've talked about, mental health issues, just everything that leads up to the act, right? We always focus on the act, and rightfully so, because it's tragic and so many lives are forever changed, and it's just horrific. But I think we've got to start looking at what leads up to that. It can't just be about the act, because if we do that, we're not going to be able to do anything to try to fix it. And we were together this morning on another call talking a lot about training and different ways to approach it. And I think there's got to be a component to that. We've got to change. I don't believe you'll hear people say, well, you can't change somebody's stripes, you can't change behavior, you can't do that. Well, see, I don't believe that. I think people can make changes.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can have an impact on big problems like this is, but training's a huge part of that.
Absolutely. Well, and some of that training is also being aware of indications of potential threats. I mean, this individual had put out several messages, numerous indications that he was had a propensity towards violence and anger. That's training ourselves to, if you see something, say something, kind of model. But in addition, the military always trains for the possibilities from as civilians. Again, I want to reinforce that we don't have to live our lives in fear and think that every place we walk into, we're going to have to escape from. But we need to train ourselves for that possibility.
Right. And I don't think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I think so many times we're looking at things from the wrong lens. We're not, we were, my wife and I were talking about how people look at things logically, or looking at it from a logical viewpoint. Like, how could somebody just walk into a school or a building or a business, or go to a military base gate, or go to a military recruiting station and just randomly shoot people they don't know?
Right.
We're looking at that through logic.
Right.
And I think many times that obviously the people that perpetrate these acts of violence, they're not being logical at all. I mean, many times they're in some state of a mental illness crisis. And so we got to quit looking. I mean, we got to start really, I think, looking at things. A lot of my buddies that are in law enforcement always say, what makes a great investigator, a great detective, and what makes a great criminal, there's just a little bit of difference between the two, right? It's because those great detectives know how to think like that. They don't obviously, but they know how to think like them, so they're able to go out, and many times the great ones are able to solve cases that nobody else could. But I think we got to just really approach things in our training and in our standard operating procedures inside our buildings, inside whether it's a business or a school or again or wherever. We got to make sure the stuff that we have. First of all, you need to have standard operating procedures on, if this happens, this is what we need to be doing.
Right.
Second of all, you need to actually train those standard operating procedures that if this happens, this is what we're going to do. And then you got to also make sure that they're current, that they're relevant. I mean, things change so quickly now. I mean, just look at SafeDefend and the evolution of SafeDefend from a deliverable. I mean, in the background of you can't see all of them. You can see the couple of the safes, but where you guys started and where you are now, and the boxes and technology that we're looking at, and different things that we're looking at, different organizations partnering with, all with the goal in mind to make the people we love safer.
Yeah.
To be able to take care of problems when they do arise, and they unfortunately are arising at an alarming rate.
Well,
I mean, it's just
and to your point, training is one of the easiest things to get in place quickly.
Yeah.
And training is one of the most empowering options that are out there and that are available. And no training is perfect, just like no response during a crisis is going to be perfect. But without training, the likelihood of that chaotic moment being worse is exponential. And
it's unbelievable.
Getting some empowerment, getting some ability to have some tools in the toolbox. Teachers talk about this all the time, about having tools in their toolbox on how to deal with behaviors, how to deal with academic kids that are struggling academically, having that ability to pull from that toolbox and be able to help that child at their individual level. Well, this is a toolbox for teachers at a crisis level, and
right.
And being able to undergo that training, you're not going to remember all of it. You're not going to remember probably most of it, but you will remember some of it. And that, during those moments, remembering some of that is going to have a substantially better outcome than if you didn't have any training at all. And it's so easy to get training going. I mean, and
the other thing is it's relatively inexpensive.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not having to invest huge parts of your budget to get good quality training that's going to make people more make them safer.
Absolutely.
I mean, and so it's well, and obviously we spend a lot of time talking about that and the need of, Dave and I, my business partner, Dave Evans, we talk all the time, come from military backgrounds, that the thing the military got right is they were always training. They were always developing. They were always getting people ready for that next thing. And, in the private sector, you just don't see it, I mean, especially in smaller organizations. I mean, if you take, I think our school budget where I live, we're a town of about, 10, 11,000 people where I live. Our district's bigger than that, obviously, but I think our budget's around 25 million, $30 million, so, I mean, that's a lot of money, but it's also not a massive budget,
right.
And so I think there's, training stuff you can do that has a real impact for your employees, and also if you're a school, for your students. I mean, it has a real world impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Training, as a budget hit is minimal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the hardest part, especially in the school scenario, and even in the private sector, the hardest thing to wrap your head around or wrap their hands around is, where are we going to find the time? And because time is critical, time is valuable. There's not a lot of time available. I'll tell you what, we can do an incredibly effective training with in an hour time frame. We've got trainings up to 3 hours that can be implemented that's much more in depth and
right.
Supportive of that. But even an hour training a semester or an hour training a year can really provide a substantial impact and really empower staff. And so, when we're weighing, what's most important? Yeah, absolutely. We've got to talk about the curriculum. Yeah, we've got to talk about the stuff at the beginning of the school year. Yeah, we've got to talk about, how we're going to, meet certain needs of students, depending on whether it's behavior, academic, whatever the case may be. But you know what? We also need to just prioritize and make our ability to respond to a crisis a priority.
Well, and I think too, in our conversations about this, one of the models that SafeDefend does that I think is really, really smart is they have that train the trainer mentality, so that once the training's done, once it's completed, we're building out a lot of really cool resources right now, some great stuff that you can take your in-house people. Maybe it's an SRO, maybe it's a school resource officer, or maybe it's one of the administrators, or maybe it's, there's a lot of options there, right?
Absolutely.
That if you're a smaller district, it's probably going to be an administrator. Some districts are so big they have their own police departments, right? So it just depends on the size of your school while we talk about schools. But regardless of the size of your school, when you have a train the trainer, and then you have tools that you can go to, click and use, then you have an opportunity to do simple things like weekly huddles, where you get people together, just, top of mind subjects, and really practice the stuff that needs to be practiced. But you've got to have consistency in any training. It's not something, there's very few trainings out there you go out and do once and then you say, okay, I got that, I'm done now. I don't have to ever look at that again. I mean, there's got to be a commitment to training. And I think in today's world, because of technology, you can make that so much easier for people to be able to provide that to the people.
Well, and we're excited to roll out at some point soon some virtual training opportunities as well.
Yep.
So
yep.
And well beyond just the active shooter and crisis management side of things, our training platform is really broad, and we not only do we have a lot of training options, from cyberbullying, general bullying, teachers crossing the line with students to protect, the students in the district. We're developing training, I'd say regularly, new training coming out or coming into our pipeline that we're on our list to develop and pull out. So, the training options that exist are so broad, but they're all going to really bring a meaningful response to staff. And you don't have to do them all at once. You don't have to, take a full day and go through all of these trainings, but, we're positioned to be able to really provide schools and businesses with relevant and impactful training that they're going to need at some point that year.
Yeah, no, and I think that's those are things that site principals, if you're talking about schools, that they can take the lead on. Most districts, there's a degree of those site administrators have some say on what goes into their buildings, and so if you're a site principal, or if you're an administrator of any kind, or superintendent, whatever, make sure you get with us, because there are definitely training programs out there that you can utilize that are going to make your facilities safer, no doubt about it. One of the other things I wanted to just briefly touch on, a few weeks ago, we were talking about just being situationally aware, just paying attention. Right now it's graduation. Unfortunately, there was a shooting in Tennessee with a graduation ceremony. So it's not always contained, it's just so you've got to be aware of your surroundings. You got to pay attention no matter where you're at in today's world. You've got to pay attention to what is going on around you at all times. Here's a graduation ceremony. I mean, it just doesn't get any more bizarre than that, right?
Well, like you brought up earlier in the conversation, the way you and I and most people think that doesn't strike, that doesn't resonate with us. That's an opportunity to hurt people.
Right.
But it does for some.
Yep.
Anytime you put a large group of people together, that small percentage that says, "Hey, this is an opportunity to hurt someone for whatever reason," and 99.99% of the people that were at that graduation were all there together, thinking it was a safe environment, thinking that that they were going to see something, that special day, see something very special take place, and
celebration.
And then it turns tragic, and it I can't say that there's a pattern, but there is definitely enough data points to say that, hey, wherever you are, we've got to be paying attention.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. You've got to be, and so I just want to remind that as we're getting ready to wrap up. I just wanted to remind everybody, make sure when you're out there, regardless if you're going to the grocery store, you're going to graduation, you're going down to the convenience store, you're running to a car dealership to get your vehicle serviced. Doesn't matter where you're going. Be aware. You're going to the gym. Pay attention. There's something out of place. There's something doesn't feel right. There's something,
Right.
And most importantly, don't be embarrassed to say something. Something,
right.
Or don't worry about, well, I don't want to make somebody. Well, no, you don't want to be that person after the fact says, I wish I would have said something.
Right.
Say something.
Right.
So I'm going to give you the last words, brother, and go. I know you got a lot going on right now and going on today, so I'm going to give you the last words and we'll wrap it up.
No, absolutely. Well, it just comes down to, the most impactful thing you can do is take care of yourself in those types of situations. And if you say something, see something, say something. But if it gets to the point where you didn't have that opportunity and something's already you're in a position where something scary is taking place, get yourself out of that environment. Because if you're alive, that's one less person that the EMTs have to worry about and try to treat, and that's one less casualty in there. And every person that takes that responsibility gets themselves the exits, knows when you walk into that gym or that grocery store where alternate exits are, where places you can go to and get out of harm's way. I mean, that's one of the simplest, easiest things you can do when you walk into a place, and then go about your business. But your mind is made a mental note of that. We've got to start taking those steps, and it's going to make a huge difference. But we're seeing it everywhere. Please, just everybody, take care of yourselves and be situationally aware, and we'll continue to try to bring great thoughts and advice and help as we can through Facebook Live, and but that only works if everybody's able to be alive and check in with us. So
and also we talked about this. By all means, there's a lot of graduations. I know our graduation locally is right now. It's tonight. Go enjoy and celebrate your time. We're not saying you've got to, but just be aware of what's going on around you.
You don't have to live in fear, but you should be paying attention.
Absolutely. Jeff, my brother, I appreciate you. You got any big soccer games this week? Got anything going on with the kids?
No, actually, our big soccer player actually is kind of down under the weather right now. So he's actually missing a big game tonight. So I don't know how that's going to go. But
well, he's not happy.
No, he's not happy at all. He went to the nurse's office at school, and she goes, "You really are sick because I've never seen you." So, this is a kid that doesn't get sick. So,
all right, my friend. We'll have a wonderful weekend, and we appreciate everybody joining us. And again, if you have questions, email them at info@safedefend.com or give them a call. We're here to help any way we can. Jeff, Thank you so much.
See you next week.
All right, brother.